Freedom has a taste, and for those who have fought for it, the taste is so sweet, the protected will never know. This is not a documentary film to draw lessons from the 1965 war, and it's not a film to glorify individuals. It is the story of a determined band of men led by a powerful military leader who delivered in war under the most intimidating and trying circumstances. 18 men, approximately 14% of the men who took part in the action, all between the ages of 19 and 35, were killed in this action. Here dead we lie because we do not choose to live and shame the land from which we sprung. Life, to be sure, is nothing much to lose, but young men think it is, and we were young. A large chunk of J&K, the Jaurian and Punch would have been lost if they had not held their nerve. But they had drunk deeply from the cup of freedom, and their children and the unit must know what they did. They themselves just thought they had done their job. In early April, Pakistan launched Operation Desert Hawk in the Rann of Kutch. By May 1965, tensions had heightened and Upper Blaze was launched by us, where regular troops moved to their battle locations. C Squadron of 20th Lancers was moved from Firozpur to Jaurian. 20th Lancers was equipped with the MX-13 2C tank. Akhnur Bridge over the Chhamb River, which we fought to defend, had two sections and was a Class 15 bridge. The 30-ton Sherman 4 ARV had to be inducted across on a raft, and this is a visual of the raft site during the crossing demonstration. It also meant that only light tanks could be inducted into Chhamb at short notice. The new commandant, Colonel O.P. Suri, had been studying medicine in the Medical College Lahore for 2 years before he chucked up to follow his passion and joined the army. With a varied operational experience and many interests, there was a fun side of him we did not see before the war. One of his first operational orders was to send his Alsatian Gypsy back to Ambala. But alas, Gypsy arrived in Ambala during the only air raid on that town, and in the confusion, Gypsy became our first casualty and went missing, believed killed. A bit about our officers. Leslie Aaron was the second in command and was a D&M wizard. In the days when only 2 Indian brands of motorcycles were available, he drove a British 650cc matchless twin-cylinder bike. He described a good bike as one that you couldn't spit through.
Squadron Commanders, A Squadron, Major S. Roy Chowdhury till the 9th of September. Major Bawa, who was injured and evacuated on the 12th of September. And thereafter, Krish Gupta, who commanded till the 22nd of September at the end of the war.
C Squadron was commanded by Bhaskar Roy
throughout the war. Headquarter went to Major K. Udaveer Singh, who came to us from Skinner's Horse. He was a bachelor. The adjutant was Tejveer Serohi, steady as a rock throughout the war.
The quartermaster was Amarjit Singh.
He survived the 1965 ops in Chhamb,
however, was killed in the Battle of Chhamb in 1971. The TA was Balbir Sandhu, who drove a 500cc BSA Star Twin and always challenged, take the bike and take a match. If she doesn't touch 100 mph, burn the bike. The RSO was Veeru Sevar and the IO Veer Singh Bhatt, who during the war cursed the Pakistani lady jammer on the regimental net in Thet Punjabi. She never tried to jam the net again.
An EC officer,
he died in a motorcycle accident shortly after his release. Captain Gangadharan was the OCLAD, and Captain Srivastav, the RMO. What a wonderful bunch of officers we had, with a slim Kutinar taking on the entire regiment. When Colonel Suri took over 20th Lancers on 24th June in Firozpur, the regiment was in three places. A Squadron was located in Firozpur. B Squadron was still in Leh under three mountain divisions. C Squadron had been moved to Jaurian during Opal Blaze. The regiment finally completed its move on the 15th of July when it moved to its KLP in Pathankot.
In early August, Pakistan launched Op Gibraltar, where she inducted 4,000 raiders to politically destabilize the valley. To cut off logistic support to the raiders, we launched an attack on Haji Pir Pass and captured it on 28th August. Border situation deteriorated rapidly and we knew something would snap. There were three crossings on the Munawwarwali Tawi at Mandyala, Chhamb and Dhar. 191 Infantry Brigade was deployed as a screen with 6 Sekhelai and 3 Mahars deployed extended on the CFL. 15 Kumaon and 6-5 Gurkhas were holding a compact defence in Mandyala and Kalidhar respectively. The brigade headquarters was located west of Mandyala and C Squadron 20th Lancers was at Chhamb. 15th of August 1965, Independence Day. It was celebrated by a steady Pakistani shelling on all our border posts. Kutinar took 2 troops forward to Pod. By 19th August, Bhaskar had brought the rest of the squadron in from Akhnur. At that time, the enemy threat expected was just an armoured regiment. A quick comparison of the 2 tanks of the opposing forces. Pakistan had a staggering 6-1 advantage in terms of numbers. Qualitatively, 66% of the equipment was the Patton M48 tank, the latest battle tank of the world. The Patton M48 and the M10 tank destroyer had a 90mm gun vis-a-vis the AMX, which had a 75mm gun. The AMX was approximately 1/3 the weight of its opponents. Because of the riverine terrain, the battle ranges were between 900 and 1200 yards. At these ranges, the AMX could never miss, so it was always best to close in with the enemy earliest and fight tight. The AMX tank target was 30% smaller, so it was that much more difficult for the enemy to get you. And lastly, at first light, the sun was against the enemy, and every tank gunner knows what a great advantage that is. The officers ensured that every tankman knew and exploited these advantages. On 20th of August, there was intensive border recce carried out by the enemy. There was massive movement of armour and a feedback from Corps confirmed Probin's horse was opposite us in this sector. This later was proved incorrect. With the readjustment, the Commandant felt a dangerous situation developing and he requested permission from the Corps to move the regiment forward from Pathankot, but this was not accorded. On the 25th of August, it was decided to move Headquarter 10 Infantry Division into the sector. The headquarters was under raising at Belgaum. On 27th August, after briefing at Army Headquarters, the GOC proceeded to Udhampur, where he was asked to do the operational recce of the 25 Infantry Division. On 1st of September, whilst on recce in 80 Brigade, the GOC was informed that Pakistan has attacked in strength and he was to take control of the 10 Div sector for the defence of Akhnur. His troops, 191 Infantry Brigade, falling back to Akhnur on night 1st-2nd September, and 41 Brigade moving to an intermediate position in Jaurian. Later, perhaps 28th Brigade at Fatwal.
1st September 1965. At 0330 hours, heavy enemy shelling started all along the border, and the squadron Recce Troop OPs moved out to Bhusa and Dalla. Bhaskar called his troop leaders and briefed them and told them to occupy the pre-Recce positions. 90 enemy tanks were pitted against 14 light AMX tanks. By 0550 hours, 2 troops were deployed east of Fort and Dalla Ridge, and 1 troop had moved east of Koil. The deployment was completed in heavy enemy shelling. At 0500 hours, an attack developed on Koil and Dalla companies. By 6330, Dalla had fallen, and from 6:30 to 9:30, a tank-to-tank battle was fought, in which 6 Pattons, 3 RCS, and an ammunition volley was blown out. By 0800 hours, the Koil position had been overrun, and Pattons were seen moving east. 1 troop was moved north and destroyed 2 tanks. In the first engagement, we had destroyed 9 Patton tanks, 3 RCLs, and 1 ammunition vehicle. Own losses: 3 tanks. C Squadron was now down to 3 fighting troops only. Whilst this battle was going on, the 2 northern companies of the Jack LI had also been overrun, and a Patton regiment, along with a motorized infantry battalion, burst through Bharmal Deva and overran a company of 15 Kumaon. The brigade headquarters was now under threat, and Bhaskar could see these tanks from the squadron location in Chhamb.
Bhaskar then ordered Ravi Laroya's troop to move to Madhyala and relieve the pressure. Ravi moved forward quickly and contacted the enemy. He fought a spirited battle, but with the overwhelming enemy strength, the entire troop was destroyed one by one. For this courageous battle, he was awarded the Sena Medal posthumously. Second Lieutenant Ravi Laroya was killed in action along with his entire crew. He was just 22 years old. Bhaskar's brilliance had not been in his planning of the battle, but how he prepared the squadron for the battle. How well they knew the ground and the plan. His ability to keep cool, absorb the change, and react swiftly. His brilliance was his confidence in the timing and the execution of orders, meting out exemplary punishment, breaking contact, and then scooting quickly to be balanced and waiting in the next position. The 2 remaining troops did a perfect move to the next delay line. The SHQ was intimately involved in the battle, and Kuti Nayar's tank moved up and knocked out 3 Pattons, forcing a pause in battle. This is what the battlefield of Chhamb looked like at 1700 hours on 1st September from Bhaskar's turret on the Chhamb crossing. The main tank versus tank battle was fought on the Phagla Ridge from 11:30 onwards. 4 tanks had been destroyed in the screen battle, and Ravi Laroya's troop had been written off thereafter. So there were just 7 tanks holding the ridgeline at Phagla. This intense battle of fire and maneuver lasted up to 1600 hours. We lost 3 tanks and Bhamar Singh Saab, and it was 1630 when Bhaskar finally gave his orders to withdraw to the Chhamb crossing. In the squadron camp in the Chhamb Grove, the squadron had left an off-road AMX tank with its main engine removed for repair. As the battle developed, Daryao Singh Saab jumped in as the commander and Sawar Son Singh Bhati as the gunner, and they destroyed 2 enemy tanks from this immobile non-runner tank. They were awarded the Sena Medal and the Chief of Army Staff's Commendation Card respectively. Another 6 Pattons and 2 M10s had been destroyed. The enemy had lost 17 tanks that day.
Somewhat beaten, the enemy did not push to contact the river line. But there was more to come. At around last light, own air destroyed the squadron Adam echelon, in which 1 ARV, 7 3-tons and 3 1-tons were charged. Darkness overtook the battlefield. However, sporadic fire continued. At 2300 hours, Bhaskar heard the enemy tanks revving up to contact the river line. At 23:30, he ordered the withdrawal to Jaurian. Just 3 tanks returned. All that was left of the Rajput squadron of 20th Lancers, which limped back to the delaying position of 41 Infantry Brigade at Jaurian in the early hours of the morning of 2nd September. For his bravery in the conduct of this incredible action, Bhaskar was awarded the MVC. Meanwhile, at Pathankot, the Second World War vintage Diamond T tank transporters were made available to the regiment at 1400 hours. The 14-hour journey to Akhnur would get them in by about 0400 hours on the 2nd of September. The RNO groups left earlier to reach the intermediate position of 41 Mounted Brigade at Jaurian by 1830 hours. Look at the fluidity of the operational situation on 1st September. Headquarter 10 Infantry Division, responsible for the operation, was not in the operation area. 191 Infantry Brigade was on the move from the battlefront to Akhnur. Enemy tanks had already reached the Mandala crossing by noon that day. 41 Brigade with 2 battalions had just arrived at Jaurian and needed at least 72 hours to dig in. Of the 20th Lancers tanks, only 11 tanks were arriving by first light of 2nd September. And lastly, a logistics system catering for a brigade had now got to handle an infantry division. And yet this team held together and fought together. At 1800 hours, the commander 41 Mountain Brigade tasked the commandant to protect the southern flank of the brigade, then digging in at Jaurian. After a hurried recce of the area by moonlight, the battered tanks of C Squadron were taken under command and a plan evolved. 11 tanks of A Squadron arrived at Jaurian at 0630 hours on 2nd September. They were greeted by an enemy air attack which was taking on the Jaurian position at that time. The regimental availability of tanks had increased to 14. A Squadron deployed south of the road with a troop at Troti. The C Squadron troop became the regimental reserve. After getting a bloody nose on the 1st of September, Pakistan had a change in strategy. It decided to hold the Munawwar Tawi with 12 Division, previously tasked for the capture of Akhnur, and 7 Division commanded by General Yahya Khan, originally an offensive formation with the 6th Armoured Division, was given the task for the capture of Akhnur. The reasons for this more cautious and decisive advance in the Chhamb sector could also be in order to create a critical situation for India along with the planned offensive of 1 Armoured Division in the Khemkaran sector on the 6th of September. There could also be a number of non-military reasons. The Pakistani bridgehead was given by 14th Punjab and 6th Frontier Force by 1910 hours on the 2nd of September. The breakout commenced on the 3rd of September. On 3rd September, 10 Brigade and 13 Lancers made slow progress because of the heavy going east of the Tawi. 12th Frontier Force, recce and support, was doing the northern flank protection, and 14th Punjab was moving to Nawa Hamirpur. On our side, after the defensive aspects had been coordinated and stabilized, the first thing to be done was to move from an observation
to a strike mode. At 14:30 hours on 3rd September, A Squadron, leading troop leader KD, was asked to move forward to contact the enemy. However, he came under intense enemy fire at Khalka Malal. Om Suri had catered for an outflank from the north. Balbir Sandhu was ready and waiting at the Kalit axis, where in an engagement they destroyed 3 M10 tanks. Captain Balbir Sandhu was awarded the Sena Medal for his excellent action. The third night was critical for the completion of defences at Jaurian. The Commandant ordered A Squadron to remain in forward positions ahead of the FTLs, without infantry for close support. That night, Pak patrols were active and obtaining information of our defences. It was a tense night full of engagements. The infantry brigade was under heavy pressure on the third night, as also on the fourth morning. By 4th September, Pak's 7th Division had deployed for the offensive with 102 Brigade in Pahadiwala, with 11th Cavalry along the northern axis and 10 Brigade with 13 Lancers along the Jaurian axis. The leading squadron resumed advance and probed the flank, but was met with heavy fire from our skillfully sighted tanks. The Pak attack on Troti with 6th Frontier Force commenced at 1100 hours with heavy artillery fired. Pak 10 Brigade thought that it had hit the mate position, and the enemy started firming in. One M10 tank destroyer was knocked out on the northern axis. With the enemy division deploying for battle, we had achieved our aim. By last light, orders for the withdrawal of 41 Brigade were received. 28th Brigade was ready and waiting at Fatwal. Our new task was to deny enemy contact with Fatwal till last light, 5th September. The regiment harboured northeast of Chakkirpal, forward of the 28th Brigade position. On the 5th, we returned to Jaurian and completed our task. On 5th September, the regiment had reached the Jaurian position before first light. At this time, the regiment was down to 11 tanks. The enemy commenced the advance at 0700 hours. The first engagement was at Chak Bhagwana itself. The regiment contested the advance throughout, and it was finally halted at the Maniwala Khad at 1600 hours. The regiment once again completed the task it had been assigned. 10 Brigade was forced to halt and dig in at Chak Kirpal, Sulechak and Najlechak. 102 Brigade was able to get up to Jagmothia and Gura. A radio intercept indicated that the enemy was withdrawing. Immediately, 2 troops were ordered forward to advance to Chakkirpal. The 2 leading troop leaders, KD and Pak, were north and south of the road. The leading tanks of both troops were hit and communications failed. KD jumped out of the tank, sprinted across the road and controlled the withdrawal of the tanks with hand signals. In the Amritsar sector, by this time, the Indian troops had crossed the IB to secure the Ichugil Canal. Pakistan reacted, and 11th Cavalry, 4 Corps Field Regiment, a medium regiment, a heavy regiment, and the 37 Corps Dislocating Regiment were all pulled out of the sector. On our side, on night 6-7 September, a counter-offensive was planned for 10th September as follows. 28th Brigade and a squadron minus were to secure Jaurian and be prepared to seize Chhamb crossing. 191 Brigade with 2 troops, 20th Lancers, was to advance along the Akhnool-Kalit axis and seize Kalit and be prepared to seize the Mandyala crossing. 41 Brigade was to pass through 28th Brigade and seize the Chhamb crossing if not already taken. 9 AMX tanks were received as replacements, and the regimental strength had gone up to 21 tanks. The 28th Brigade offensive was launched on
launched on 10th September with the following objective. Firstly, 2nd Grenadiers with 2 troops of tanks was to capture Chhamb by first light 10th September. Second, a company X-15 Kumaon and a troop of tanks was to capture Najlechak. The attack on Chhamb and Najlechak were beaten back with very heavy casualties of the 2nd Grenadiers. We too lost 3 tanks.
In Punjab, the Pakistani offensive to cut the GT road with its 1 armoured division had disastrous results. By then, it was clear that Pakistan had no offensive capability across the board. From the 11th to 22nd September, the regiment provided anti-tank protection to 28th Brigade. 29 enemy tanks were destroyed in this sector by this unit. This too, when at any given time or day, there were not more than 14 light AMX tanks available in the front line against the 90-odd Patton tanks. These men paid the difference with their lives. 44 men dead or bleak wounded of the 31 tank crews fielded in battle. In a new, unstructured command setup, they coordinated smoothly with other arms and services, improvised, used unconventional ways of information collecting, redid communications and medical chains as the battle progressed. They proved themselves by fighting 24 to 48 hours non-stop at every critical stage of the battle, had barely any other respite or sleep, and had the wireless mush ringing in their ears non-stop for 22 fateful days. On the 1st of September, in the Chhamb battle, 3 tanks survived. Even after the severe battering and 36 hours of combat, knowing that the Madiala crossing was with the enemy, at 1200 hours, the battered squadron continued its vigil till 23:30 hours. On 3rd September, in the Battle of Jaurian, when 41 Brigade needed time desperately for the preparation of defences, the regiment remained deployed at night, forward of FDLs, without infantry protection, ensuring the attack could not be developed that night. On the 4th-5th September, in the Battle of Fatwal, they again deployed forward of 28 Brigade FDLs, again at night and without infantry, so that they were not imbalanced for their task on 5th September and could take on the enemy at first light in Jaurian. Let's not forget this extraordinary team of men that quietly went about their work at the time of crisis when the resources were inadequate and all hope was gone. The history of J&K and India would have changed had this determined team of men had a faint heart. And in the end, it is appropriate to compare Horatio in Lord Macaulay's poem to this brave band of men of 20th Lancers. And when above the surges they saw his crest appear, all Rome sent forth a rapturous cry, and even the ranks of Tuscany could scarce forbear to cheer. With weeping and with laughter, still is the story told, how well the Lancers kept the bridge in the brave days of old. मैंने इस यूनिट का नमक खाया है, and I have told the story as accurately and as dispassionately as possible.